Hello and welcome back to She Is the Moment podcast. I'm your host, Shona, and today we have a very special guest. We have Katie Bambrick on the podcast. Hello, Katie.
Hello. Thank you
How
for
are
that very
you doing?
enthusiastic welcome. I'm doing great. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you again, twice in 1 week. How
I
lucky am
know.
I?
I am so spoiled. I'm so spoiled. I love chatting to you. And I was on Katie's podcast this week. If you want to go and check that out, her podcast is called Do You Even Mind? Do You Even Mind?
It's very sassy.
Such a great name. I was on it and I was like my usual charming, bubbly, wonderful, hilarious self. So if you want to go and listen to that, go and listen to that. But listen to this one first. Don't pause and go and listen. Stay here and listen to this.
Plug, but don't unplug just yet, okay?
Plug, unplug. Right. Anyway,
Exactly.
Katie, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, what you do, things like that.
Absolutely. So, hey everyone, my name is Katie Bambrick, and I am a subconscious breakthrough coach. I am trained in hypnotherapy, EFT, which is tapping, emotional freedom technique, and neurolinguistic programming, NLP. And essentially, what all of that means is that I help business owners rewire their subconscious mind so that their belief systems are actually in alignment with their goals. Because 95% of our results, our reality, is a reflection of our belief systems. So if there is something that we don't have yet, if you've been working towards a monetary goal in your business and you've been doing all of the strategy, you're very consistent, you're showing up all the time, you're selling every day, and you've invested in lots of strategy, but for some reason you're coming up against this income ceiling, chances are it's a subconscious block because we have so many different money beliefs and systems going on in our brain that are sort of running the show. And when you get to the bottom of that, you can make your strategy work 10 times harder. So it's about, getting your belief systems in alignment with what your goals are so you can hit them faster.
Isn't that amazing? And I love hearing you talk about it because you are just so behind it and so passionate about it. And I mean, I'm totally behind it as well. I find it so interesting because you're really good at selling what you do, right? Like I am so bought into it. I'm so behind it, but I find that a lot of people don't know that that is what they need. Do they? Like they think that okay, this strategy is not working, then clearly I just need another strategy. I just need to do another mastermind. I need to join another membership. I need to find someone else's like formula that is going to be the secret. But often it's not that. It's absolutely not that. And I assume that that is why you do what you do because you've discovered that. Did you go through that particular discovery yourself?
Absolutely. So I went through that discovery myself, and I also had a lot of clients come to me because I used to be very strategy based in my business. So people used to come to me. I mean, I've got a background in marketing. And so I was helping people with marketing their business, selling. That's probably why I am good at selling because I understand how to do it and I have that background in it. But what I found when people came to me is that I could give them all the strategy in the world, and I could literally, not that I necessarily did this, but I could be like, here is what to say, go and say it. Here's what to do, go and do it. And they would have it all in front of them. But then their mindset was what would get them in hot water, essentially. So they would procrastinate, or they would have all these doubts about themselves. They knew they needed to increase their prices, but they just couldn't. They just didn't back their new prices. And because they didn't back their new prices, they were struggling to sell. They would have all this anxiety, all this confidence. And as we know, in order to be successful, in order to actually like stand out from the crowd, you can't be a little wallflower in the corner doubting every move. You have to be, I am the best at what I do. I'm so great. People can't wait to pay me. I know people are going to pay these prices. And so when you don't have that, it's very, very hard to hit the goals that you want to hit in your business. And I went through that myself. I actually call this type of person the serial strategist because they just keep investing in strategy. And as soon as there's like something like, say, for example, a slow sales month, or I don't know, something just goes quote unquote wrong in their business that month or that week or whatever, their initial instinct is not to go, is it something to do with how I'm approaching business and some of my behaviors that are holding me back, some of the beliefs that I have that are holding me back? And they immediately go, I'm missing something. I'm missing a strategy. There is a strategy that Shona has that I clearly don't have, even though I've worked with Shona and I've worked with all of Shona's coaches. I am going to go out and I'm going to invest in a strategy session with somebody. They just keep doing the same thing again and again and again, and they keep ending up with the same results. They keep hitting that income ceiling, that income plateau, and it's very common for people to not realize. So a lot of what I do actually is also creating awareness around it, but then a lot of people come to me and they're like, I need help, please help me.
So my question is, like, see, when you were like at the early stages of coaching people through this, like, so maybe you hadn't even transitioned from this, maybe you were still like helping people with their sales and marketing and things like that, and you were noticing this in your clients. How did you have that conversation with them? And I'm not asking you just be like, can you tell me how how do I coach your clients?
What do I say?
What I say, but I just, because I am exactly the same as you. I have clients who have everything that they need in order to succeed, right? As in all the tools, all the strategy, but they are getting in their own way. And they don't think they need any help with the mindset because they are coaches themselves quite often. Like all of
Mhm.
my clients are coaches in the health and fitness industry, and they coach people every single day with their mindset. And they're like, I don't need that. Like I do this all the time. I don't have this problem. But
Mm.
it's communicating that to someone. So how would you have that difficult conversation?
Yeah, you have to stay in rapport with your client. That's the most important thing to remember. So it's really having the awareness. Is this person going to respond to tough love?
Mm.
Or is this person going to need a bit of gentle parenting? And
What and the real?
yes, play the real. Literally what we spoke about on my podcast for a bit there. And so with some people, I think people know deep down most of the time. And what I do is I use a lot of questioning, and I'm like, why do you think that? Where did that come from? So if someone, for example, comes to me and they're like, no one's buying this month. Like I've spoken to my 3 other friends in the industry, and no one is landing any clients. So that's what's going on right now. And I'm like, where'd you get that from? Why do you think that? Do you think that everyone is experiencing the same thing as you? Is that is that fact as factual as the sky is blue, the grass is green? And starting to like question them on their ways of thinking, and they'll start to realize they're like, oh, actually, this is probably a story that I'm telling myself. And something else that I do as well is, and people actually always used to tell me this, especially when I did the strategy side of things, but I'm still very much like this with my clients and with mindset as well, is that they're like, I just love that you just say it like it is, because I just don't love when people beat around the bush too much. I would rather be told directly, or just be like, I want someone to make me aware of my own bullshit, basically. Like that's why I would hire somebody. Obviously you're doing it in like a loving way, but if someone came to me and they were doing all of these things and I'd noticed it was a pattern, and I think that's key. We always, we all like have our moments, we're human. But if you are noticing that your client is going away and they're constantly procrastinating, or there's a certain pattern that keeps recurring, maybe they'll be super motivated for a week and then that motivation will slowly start to decrease. But they have all the tools at their disposal to get the results that they want. If there's a pattern of that happening, it's important to then call them out. I'm noticing that this is currently what's going on. Have you noticed that as well? Why do you think this is happening? And so using questioning a lot to help them come around to their own awareness of their own patterns, the ways that they're getting in their own way, and then getting to the root cause of it. And that's when you can like start to do the rewiring and start looking at their belief systems.
Do you know when you said earlier on that you said something about tough love and
Mm.
gentle parenting? I think a lot of people assume that if you are working with mindset, with all the sort of things that you help people with, it's like soft. It's like really cuddly and a bit fluffy, if you know
Yeah,
what I mean.
it can be.
Whereas well, I mean, it can be, but I don't think I've met someone who is as direct as you are. And
Really?
I mean, I love that because I feel like I've absorbed some of that in my coaching style. Like I'm a really abrupt, direct person in
Yeah.
my personal life, but I've like really channeled that into my coaching as well since meeting you, because it's not serving people to not be direct, especially if like there's so much on the line here for the people that we're working with. There is a lot on the line. Like it is the difference between making money, paying your bills, paying your mortgage, supporting your family, and not, right? So
Hmm.
if we are beating about the bush and not calling a spade, then we are doing them a disservice. And I absolutely love the questioning technique that you mentioned there. And ever since, I can't remember which masterclass it was that you did, but like learning all about above the line and below the line thinking or beds. And also, I asked someone, are are we focusing on solutions right now, or are we focusing on problems? What do you think's going on here? And
So good. Love
I
a
love
leading
it.
question every now and then.
Great question.
Yeah.
Do you think this is above the line thinking, or is this below the line thinking? And it is so powerful because it's a literal visual, isn't it? The above the line, the low line. I can actually think, right, okay, yeah, this is kind of below the line thinking. And I just love that so much. And it's definitely opened my eyes, changed my perspective on how to coach mindset, how to help people change their way of thinking and their behavior.
Oh my gosh, yes. Below the line, above the line, love it.
Yeah.
And I think like we're allowed to have our moments where we're below the line, but at least being aware of that. We're like, do you know what? I am having a bit of a pity party right now, and I'm going to give myself until 5 p.m. to have a pity party. And sometimes it actually helps to set that little deadline because you're like, I'm not going to wallow any longer than I need to, really. Like, I want to give myself the moment. I want to feel my feels. I'm having a bad day. I'm going to run a bubble bath, whatever you need to do. But then after that, it's like, okay, let's get into solutions now, because people that succeed do not spend days and days and days and days, or even hours and hours and hours and hours wallowing and thinking, oh, I lost this client. They're like, okay, yep, fine, lost that prospect. Let's go on to the next one. Like, what can I do next? And that's someone that succeeds a lot faster.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now I've got a question for you that's just sprung up into my head.
Sprung.
Sprung. Like that. So I think a lot of my clients and people that listen to this podcast will find your thoughts on this really interesting, right? So a lot of them coach one-to-one, but they also coach in a group setting. Okay, so they might have like a group call where people are discussing their problems. And I know that you do that. And obviously, like you have your membership and you've got people talking about like various things that they're struggling with. How do you, because obviously we're all allowed, as you just said, we're all allowed to have that moment where you're feeling in your feels, you're feeling like a bit of a victim, you're wanting to let off steam and complain. How do you manage that without it impacting the other people that are also involved in that group setting? Because sometimes as the coach, you can be like, right, I'm going to give you space to feel this, but at the same time, we still want this to be like uplifting and everyone to learn from this. How do you manage that? It's quite a difficult one to navigate, isn't it?
So as in someone's coming to the group and they're probably below the line.
And how do we stop like dragging like some people are like hanging on to that line, trying to keep their little head above it, and then they've just been dragged down.
Yeah. We're all going down. It's a Titanic situation. So I would say, I think actually what you said there, even about bringing awareness to above the line, below the line, first acknowledging how that person feels. We want to validate how they're feeling, because especially if they're coming to a group dynamic and they're being vulnerable and they're sharing, I think that is so important, and we want to encourage that. And we also don't want to have like, everything's amazing, hustle, bitch. Like, it doesn't need to be like, we don't want to go into the full like marketing bro type. Like,
positivity is not welcome here.
We don't want that. No. Have you seen those reels where the people are doing like spoofs about like becoming millionaires and stuff? I'll have to send you some. They're so good.
I love them. Yeah.
You'd find it hilarious. But it's that we don't want that. We want to first validate how they're feeling. And then we also want to say, like, I think it's important to be like, we've all been there. And okay, yes, this is how you're feeling. This is what you're currently going through. And we need to pull you out of it now. So even bringing awareness, if it feels appropriate in that moment, depending on how that person's feeling, to the above the line, below the line thinking. But also then starting to be like, using the questioning techniques again to helping them come up with solutions, helping them reframe. I think reframing is incredibly helpful. So say, for example, someone had lost they'd had a really bad sales month and they were just feeling anxious about that. And they were thinking, oh my God, I've got a family to feed, I've got a mortgage to pay, whatever. And they're starting to freak out. It's trying to like reframe that kind of thinking. And then also taking their individual problem and broadening it out a little bit so that it's more relatable to everyone. We've all had moments where we think, oh my God, I'm a bit anxious, because uncertainty comes with the job. Like, we chose to be business owners, we chose to be self-employed, and with that comes uncertainty. We don't have that same type of security you get from being in a 9 to 5 and getting your salary at the end of the month and knowing exactly what's coming in. Like, we don't have that. We have the potential to earn way more, but also we have the potential to sometimes have a month where we're like, oh, that wasn't great, was it? You know, and it's unpredictable. So I think sometimes I'm broadening it out, and then say, if someone's coming to you in that real scarcity mindset, to be like, right, I hear you, I feel you, and then making it more of a teachable moment for everyone by saying, right, so here is how to move out of a scarcity mindset. Here is what we can do now. And then giving them steps to move forward from that. And I think that's where it becomes helpful, is if you can create a teachable moment for everyone that everyone can relate to, even if it's not that specific exact scenario. I'm sure we can all find ourselves being like, yeah, I have definitely fallen into a scarcity mindset before, and I want to know how to get out of it as fast as possible.
Do you not think that as a coach, as the person facilitating that sort of environment, it takes so much confidence, balls, assertiveness to like have that, like to like nip that in the bud? Because I've definitely, like, I've been a coach for years and years and years, and I've definitely let situations like that just run away with themselves. Like, when I was a pre and postnatal coach, I would have like group calls, and it would just turn into people complaining like
I can
about
imagine.
life. And I wouldn't have the, I don't know what was lacking there. Was it perhaps boundaries? Like, was it perhaps like the assertiveness? Was it the verbal skills in order to like nip that in the bud? But it's definitely come with practice, and like, I think a combination of those things, like having phrases like or being able to ask questions and being able to know, this isn't I need to give an answer here. This is, I'm just going to hit it right back at you and ask the question. And then also just having like the confidence to be like, no, we can't wallow in this anymore.
Yeah, and to not make it into a one-on-one call. And I think that does come with like confidence, but confidence comes with competence, and I think competence usually comes over time.
Yeah.
And so the more that you experience something, the more you're like, oh, okay. After every call you do, if you're like, that that went on a bit too long. I think that person had the floor for like 20 minutes and it was just too much for a group call. So what could I do next time? And sometimes that means interrupting.
Yeah.
Sometimes what
Bring
were you going
someone
to
in,
say?
be like, Katie, would you like to tell Sandra that she's being a bit of a drip right now?
And like bring the Oscars music on. I think like you need to sometimes just be like, I'm just going to stop you there because you've just made a really interesting point. You've just said something really interesting, you know?
And before you say something boring, I'll just stop you.
Oh my God, people are going to be listening to this. Like, is that what they're thinking when they're coaching us? We're not quite story. We're
Maybe
just
not.
being stupid. But I think like saying something like that, and if someone's, we do get people that like ramble a lot and just like love to share, love to talk. We love a sharer, but sometimes I think if it is a group dynamic, we need to like reel it back in. And again, that does come with time and experience and learning from each call that you do. You're like, okay, that probably, how could I have done that a little bit differently? You can usually feel it within yourself if you're like, that didn't feel like that great. How could I make that beneficial for everyone involved? So everyone's like feeling like they're in it and learning something.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So before we started recording, we were like messaging back and forward. What are we going to talk about today? What are we going to talk about? And you said that you would like to talk about the subconscious, and we've obviously like been touching on that like several times throughout this podcast and the podcast before. But if someone doesn't know what that means, could you explain like what is the subconscious?
What is it?
What is
Yeah.
it? Who is she?
Who is she? She is the moment. So the subconscious mind, we have, I'm sure most people would have heard the conscious mind, and we've also got the subconscious mind. And so the subconscious mind is essentially just the part of our brain that like all of our beliefs, all of our emotions, our behaviors, it really controls all of that. And so from the ages of like 0 to 7, we are like little sponges. we are very much like in our subconscious. And so we are just soaking everything up. We're learning everything. That's where we start to develop stories, positive and negative, beliefs, positive and negative. So that's why a lot of people, I mean, when people come to me and they work with me and they're having an issue around money, it always goes back to childhood, and it always goes back to their experiences watching their primary caregivers, how they dealt with money, what their relationships were, if they had any formative experiences, good or bad, around money. It really always comes back to that. I mean, I had a client call yesterday, and she had just been told by her VA that she was going to leave. And then we ended up like making connections and patterns, because that's what I do with my clients. And she hadn't actually realized this, but she was using a lot of language like left in the lurch. I'm afraid that if I hire someone else, they're just going to leave. And I was like, okay, you've just said this language to me. And she's like, oh my God, the fear of abandonment's come up again. I was like, the fear of abandonment's come up again. And so she had had multiple experiences from her childhood and also adulthood, because that's what happens. We tend to just repeat patterns around that abandonment, and she was experiencing the same feeling. So we did like EFT tapping on it and things like that. So it's so fascinating. So all of the stories that we carry into adulthood and our experiences that keep reoccurring, because that's what happens. Our brain, our subconscious mind loves things that are familiar, and it loves to be right. So our reticular activation system is this filter in our brain, and it filters in what we deem to be important to us. So this is why people get into relationships with very similar people. They have similar relationship patterns. It's because we are subconsciously familiar with that thing, even if it might not be necessarily what's good for us. It's what we're familiar with, so we will gravitate towards that. So that's sort of how the subconscious mind works. It's obviously like a super complex subject, but just to break it down, it's 95% of our behaviors, our feelings, our everything, our belief systems are subconscious, and 5% of what we do is conscious. We are mostly thinking the same thoughts throughout the day on repeat. It's quite rare that we actually have a brand new thought that we've never thought before. Most of what we do is just autopilot. And so if we want to change our life, we really need to look at changing our subconscious belief patterns.
Wow.
Yeah.
95%. And so what are the sort of topics, like if because you touched on money and you touched on relationships, what are the other things that you tend to talk about when you're talking about the subconscious with your clients?
Like nothing is off the table. This is what I love about it. I love it so much because like nothing's off the table, but mostly I would say relationships. And people don't come to me for that necessarily. I have had people come to me for relationship issues, but most people that I work with are business owners, and so they want to improve and grow and scale their businesses, and they're usually coming up against some sort of block, like some sort of ceiling. Maybe they're earning a similar range of money every single month, and they've tried everything like I just spoke about before, and they're really just coming up against that. So what I tend to find is people come to me with their presenting problem, their symptom, if you like. And then when we get to the root cause of it, it's like, I had this experience when I was 6 years old in my class, and oh my God, this is why this thing keeps happening to me. This is why I don't believe I'm deserving of making more money. This is why I don't believe that I'm good enough. Or even if there isn't necessarily a specific core wound around it, there will be beliefs around it. Things just don't come easy to me. I have to constantly prove myself, unlike other people. Everyone else it seems to be possible for other people, but it's not possible for me. So there'll be these little beliefs, little things that you think that end up going back to experiences that you had that had nothing to do with money. They probably were relational problems that you had, because that's usually where we do a lot of learning and a lot of taking on all these stories and belief patterns. So that's why I love what I do, because like no 2 days are the same and no 2 sessions are the same. And like I said before, that one about the VA leaving brought up stuff about abandonment wounds, which you would never really think. Like it's really deep, So I think that's what's so fascinating about what I do.
She must have been a good VA. She left that like, oh, I'm gonna really miss
like,
you.
oh, yeah, but that's the thing. It's like she wasn't even having a huge emotional response to that VA, but I was just noticing the language that she was using. And then we were talking about growing and scaling and how that overwhelmed her. And then she was like, oh my God, okay. Every time there's a thought of someone leaving, she's like, I don't want to do it. So she's protecting herself.
Wow. Yeah. What I find really scary and terrifying is the fact that, like, as a parent, like now I could accidentally do something that totally fucks up my child.
And you
And
will.
oh yeah, well, like yeah, it's me, so I'm
It's you,
definitely will.
Shona. The damage is done. I'm joking. I'm joking. But like we like that's something that we are going to pass on things to our children.
Yeah.
But like there's being fucked up, and then there's the regular fucked up that all of us are. You know,
Mm.
you're doing
But
great.
even like it can be so I'm going to tell you a story about me. So when I was in like primary 1 or 2, right? I was very young, so like 5 or 6 years old. I took my little yogurt, like had a little carton of yogurt with the lid on it, and I took it to this woman who was like a teaching assistant. And she, like, I said, "Can you peel the lid off for me?" Because I was like, I was
A baby.
obviously too stupid to do it myself. Right. So she peeled the lid off, and as she peeled it off, she went, "Ugh," like that, right? That has had such a profound effect on me, right? So now, well, for a very long time, like I was like really embarrassed about the food that I ate. I was like, people are gonna find the food that I eat disgusting. And even
Mm,
now, see that like yogurt lids, so disgusting to me. As it when it's on the yogurt pot, like fine. As soon as it's off, it needs to be out with my eyesight, otherwise it'll make me sick. And if I ever see someone licking,
interesting. That isn't that fascinating? But that's like the perfect example of how
yes,
a seemingly throwaway
yeah,
event for her. She wouldn't remember that,
oh no,
but that has stayed with you,
hmm
and you made meaning of that.
hmm
That would have had nothing to do with you. That woman may have just hated yogurt. But
maybe someone
you
did it to her when she was a child.
maybe, and she's just it's like a generational yogurt trauma. But you but you as like little Shona didn't understand why she had that reaction and
No.
made a story that it meant something about you.
Mm.
And that's what we do. That's what we do when we're little. And that's the perfect example because people wouldn't look at that and go, that's a traumatic experience. But it was for you.
Yeah, and it just also goes to show that it could be someone that's not even really in your life. It
Yeah.
could be like a complete stranger, and one tiny little interaction then
Hmm.
like changes the course of your life because of how you internalize and translate that event.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, isn't
So
it?
interesting. Yes.
So
Oh
then
my
how do you even start? Like, because you mentioned like you don't need to reveal all your secrets because obviously if someone wanted to then reprogram, like I think, did you say the word reprogram
Yeah,
there?
rewire,
Rewire.
reprogram. Yeah.
So then how do you even go about that? Like if this is so ingrained into you, and it's like, as you say, your subconscious, like you're not even thinking about, like they're just like this sort of constant, like it's like a narrative, it's like what's tattooed to your little brain cells. Then
Mhm.
how do you start to even change that?
Yeah, so even like what you were mentioning there about like being ingrained and like things being tattooed into us is
They're
quite good
not.
language to use. Well, it
Sorry.
is good language to use actually. It's a good metaphor because we have neural pathways that, and that's why, those neural pathways are being developed from the ages of 0 to 7. And they become harder to change as we get older because, as I said before, it requires a lot of energy, a lot of mental energy to change. If you think about trying to create a new habit, like I know you work with loads of fitness coaches, and fitness coaches will know 100% how
Mm.
hard it is to motivate someone or to get someone to change that say has never gone to the gym. And it's hard to create that new habit because it's not ingrained in them.
Yeah.
And so it's exactly the same with making any kind of change in your life, to your behavior, to your belief system. It's hard to do it consciously. And I love talking therapy, but talking therapy is amazing for creating awareness. It's harder to create change with
Right.
talking therapy because you're doing it on a conscious level. You're like, I'm going to change. I'm going to do this thing differently next time. And you'll notice that. And I give the example of commitment-phobes with this because a lot of commitment-phobes are aware, I've got a fear of commitment. And they might even want one day to settle down and have a family and like find that meaningful connection with somebody. But as soon as they get close to somebody, they will have this fear come up, all of these emotions come up, telling them to run, 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 run. You are unsafe. So they could consciously know, I'm a commitment phobe. I want this relationship. This person's really great for me. Oh my God, but I'm vulnerable and I need to run away because I need to protect myself. And that fear is going to win over the conscious logic every single time, right? And so if we want to change, awareness is great. And we always know awareness is the first step, blah, blah, blah. But you actually need to in my opinion, work with the subconscious, because that's what's running the show. Why would we look at the 5% constantly when look at this 95% of what's going on in the background? And we have these neural pathways that have been deeply ingrained from when we're younger. So we need to change those neural pathways as we get older, so we start to think differently, behave differently, get different results. So in order to do that, there's many ways that you can do subconscious work, but I do hypnotherapy, NLP, and EFT. And all of those modalities rewire your mind. They allow your conscious mind to almost like step aside in a way, because you get into a very relaxed state and you sort of tap into different parts of your brain when you do it. And then you can give your subconscious mind suggestion for change. So, for example, like with hypnosis, people get into this trance state, this really relaxed state. And when you're in that state, and it's like that state as you're just waking up in the morning or just before you're about to go to sleep, it's sort of like being in that kind of state, that very meditative, relaxed state. Your subconscious mind is then open to suggestion and change, and you can start giving it those suggestions. And that's when people start really noticing a difference. They make conscious changes as well. So obviously you have to take action, but they start to notice that, like, oh, I don't feel as anxious as I used to feel. Oh, I don't feel all this resistance to going viral anymore. I'm not scared of what people are going to think as much. That's interesting. And so they start noticing that that's what they're thinking. And then because that's how they're thinking, their behaviors start to change. And then because your behaviors start to change, your results start to change. So that's a really long-winded way, but it's how it all works. And it's, yeah, I think the first step really is to sort of find a modality that resonates with you. So if you're aware of something that you don't want in your life anymore, and you're like, I want to change this, I've got the awareness, okay, then finding a modality that works well, that resonates with you. And that could just be like, as I said, hypnosis, EFT, NLP, all of those can help. But then it becomes with repetition as well. So it's not just enough to be like saying these affirmations, like, which is actually very conscious work. You actually have to believe it, and you have to do it a lot. And then with that repetition, you'll start to notice that changes start happening for you.
That's a really good point about these things, isn't it? Like you actually have to do the work and put the reps in.
Mm-hmm.
There's language that my followers will understand. Like you actually, like you need to more than just want it
Mm-hmm.
and talk about it. And it's so interesting because like I've done a lot of talking therapy and I've done a good bit of CBT as well.
Mm-hmm.
But almost like a part of me enjoys the talking therapy because it is wallowing, it's scratching an itch, but is it really soothing the itch? No.
Is it healing it?
Is it healing it? No. It's actually probably just like making it a bit more crusty.
And it can, oh, lovely. And it can be, let's keep going with this pussy wound metaphor. Let's see how far we can take it. I think though, some people, and I love talking therapy as well. And like, it did change my life and I felt like it really helped me. But then I did find I kept having patterns repeat themselves. And it wasn't until I did mindset work that I was like, oh, like subconscious mindset work, that I was like, oh, okay. So I think it can be like an amazing thing. Like if you want to go to talking therapy and that's like, you know, that's your sounding board, you can like get shit off your chest and it's needed like to process. But I do think when someone's been in talking therapy for like 10 plus years for the same problem, I'm like, what? Is this serving you?
Yeah, or is it just like you're probably your therapist is like, I'm loving the cash, but this is dull. I'm over, over talking about this with you.
Time to move along, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I am absolutely desperate to talk about dating.
Oh my God,
It's
yes.
not relevant. Real, do you know what, right? Relationships are so relevant to my clients because your partner, your partner has such a big impact on your business, I think. Like your belief in yourself. Yeah. And I think that like yeah, I want to talk about dating, but I actually really want to talk about relationships.
Yeah.
Um
One of my favorite subjects. Love
great,
this.
great. It's mine too. It's mine too. So as a single gal, right? As a single gal who is so knowledgeable about relationships and healthy relationships and toxic relationships and patterns within relationships, and as a single gal, you're out dating. How how do you like? Do you think that's a help or a hindrance?
I think it's definitely a help
Right.
because But I also think the air is thinner, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So I think like it's like when you've got high standards for yourself, and when you can also spot someone that could be potentially toxic, or like they've got certain things going on that you just won't allow, I
Mm.
think you're naturally narrowing down that dating pool a bit more. But I'm
Mm.
glad to do that. Like I am happy about that.
Yeah,
Sometimes
because
I wish
you
there were more emotionally intelligent men out there, don't get me wrong.
yeah, you're doing it before you start to catch feelings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And I've
you're
always been really good at that, actually, to be
good.
honest. I think I just don't hang around long. Like I used to actually have a tendency to almost cut things off too soon. I think I used to be, I mean, I was quite anxiously attached, but I've done like loads of work on that and I'm not anymore.
Mm.
But I find that it's interesting actually, like when I go on dates and people find out what I do, they're like, oh my God, are you psychoanalyzing me right now? Like that men always ask that question. And I'm like, I'm off the clock. But yes. No, I'm not. Who hurt you, sir? No, I'm always like, no, I'm literally like, no, I'm not. I focus it on how I feel when I'm with somebody, how comfortable I feel, if they seem like a really lovely person, like the kind of energy I'm getting off them. But I think I can spot like insecurities and like some sort of toxic behaviors come out from like a mile away. So I think I'm very good at like spotting that kind of behavior.
Mhm.
So I think it's overall a help, I would say.
Good, good. You know, I think it would be as well. And obviously, you're so good at spotting it. I imagine you're probably quite good at spotting it in your clients as well when they talk about their partners and their relationships. And so, obviously, we've talked a bit about having these difficult conversations. But where would you stand on if you felt like what was holding someone back was their partner? Because we've definitely, like, I've been in that situation sometimes, and it's really definitely when I was a pre and postnatal coach, right?
Yeah.
I would be like, I honestly, I was like, babe, the reason that you don't have time to exercise, the reason that you are feeling so shit right now is because your husband prioritizes golf more than anything else. Your husband is useless, and
That
that is
makes
the
me
reason.
mad.
Oh, it makes me so mad. And I was a pre and postnatal coach. That was way out with my scope of like, I can't just say like your husband. You're
Get a
basically
divorce.
he's get divorced.
Yeah.
You're basically a single parent right now. No
Yeah.
wonder you don't have time to like look after yourself. So obviously you have more scope to do that within your role. Have you ever had that type of conversation?
Uh, so it's hard with relationships, isn't it? Because it involves like another person and it's a big life change if they
Mhm,
were to change it.
mhm,
And I have absolutely, in answer to your question, yes, I've had clients come to me and they've explained their relationship dynamics. And the thing is, people won't make a decision until they are ready to make it, and they need to get there by themselves. I can ask questions, I can hold the space for that. But at the end of the day, I'm not the one that's going to live with the consequences of that decision. I'm not the one that's going to be in that relationship if they chose to stay. And I'm also not going to be the one to deal with the repercussions if they choose to leave it. So it's not my decision to make. And I mean, we've all dated someone or known someone that's dated someone that you're like, get out of that relationship. Like, what are you doing? But they will get there in their own time. Or maybe they won't, but that's their choice. And I think like I believe in like that agency over everything else.
mm,
It is difficult, and I think you can there's obviously situations where you need to step in and if it's like abusive or whatever, obviously, but we're more talking about the fact that like your partner's a piece of shit and they're just like selfish. So you need to, I think, question them, how they're feeling, take the focus off their partner, and it's like, how is this affecting you? What do you feel like you deserve? Whatever, like using those questioning techniques and just again like holding that space. But yes, and it makes me, I also have to set aside my own agenda and ego.
mm.
Because when I hear stories like that, I actually had a quote the other day and I was like, oh, that's so true. Someone was like, oh, I would love to be, they're like, oh, I don't want to be a mother. I'd love to be a father though. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I hear that. Like, because it's just like, the amount of women I speak to, my friends and just people, just conversations I've had, I'm like, wow. do better, man, do better. But I have to set aside my own agenda. And again, it's about, not to sound like Ariana Grande, it was like holding space, you know, like you've just got to hold the space for it.
Do you
What
know
do you
the
think about it? What do you do? How
oh
do you
my god,
find it? It's hard.
I've in my current role, I've not had a situation where I'm like, oh god, like this is what's causing you to struggle in business. I've not had that situation, and when I say that, um, it's more like they don't feel worthy enough to like ask for help, or they're like, maybe they're a bit of a perfectionist, so they will be the one who like, I need to do all the housework, and so obviously like their business is the last priority.
Mm.
um and that's not a partner problem. Like that's something that is growth within themselves, is like realizing that they deserve that. Their business will only grow if they actually, and I went through this journey as well. Like I was the person who was um juggling child's, like looking after my baby, and like I can do it both. But I was doing both really badly. And when I realized that if I wanted to take my business seriously, I needed to invest in nursery, and I needed to get over myself in this, like, I need to be the best mom in the world. I need to look after my child all the time. Like I needed to get over that, and accept that like I need help if I want to do what I want to do. So that was definitely like that was a me thing. That was an inner growth thing. Um, but in terms of in terms of like being a pre and postnatal coach, oh god, that
I
was
can
just,
imagine, because
oh,
that's such a vulnerable time.
it's such a vulnerable time. And that's when you, like, you can have a relationship that you think is quite good, and it seems fine, and then you have a child with a person. Like, I'm not speaking from personal experience. Like, I'm probably the father in the situation.
Thank you,
I have
Paul. Is it
I have
Paul?
like Paul. Yeah, he is
Yeah.
such an incredible partner. I'm very, very lucky, and I think that was also why I struggled as a pre and postnatal coach, because I just couldn't relate. Like,
Mm.
we were very much 50-50 splitting the parenting. Like, it would be like a no-brainer to make sure that I was able to have some time to myself and he was able to have some time to himself. It was such a, like, that was just the dynamic of a relationship. So then when I was having these people who were telling me that they were gonna go to the gym, but then their partner phoned me on my way back, on his way back from work, and he's like, I'm just gonna nip to, I don't know, the shop. I'm just gonna nip to go and play golf. I'm just gonna nip to the gym. And then he doesn't think about the fact that like she's a human that has needs as well. And it was just so frustrating for me. It was, oh, I found it so tough to deal with. And I think that's probably why I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, if you can feel your blood pressure raising all the
Yeah.
time, it's probably not good for you, you know,
Mm.
to help
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, but so I think it's definitely, it's a growth thing. It's a boundaries thing. It's a self-worth thing, isn't it?
Oh
Uh,
yeah. And
yeah.
it's again, I think it really goes back to them being ready to make that decision or know what's best for them. And you can like guide them there and like hold their hand a little bit whilst they get there.
Mm.
But it's tough. Yeah. But they have to get to that realization on their own.
I've had a couple of like situations where, and this is why money mindset is like now such a huge part of what I coach with my clients, because I didn't know about money mindset like, until I met you, and now I'm like, right, this is so important for me to teach my clients about this, because I've had a conversation where someone said, oh, my husband keeps track of my accounts, like my husband, like he manages my bank account.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, no, really and truly, like in 2025, we cannot be letting other people manage your money. Like, so from the very start, when I coach people, I'm like, let's start to like look after our finances as well. Let's start to know about what's going on with your money. Let's start to look at your bank account, like, and become friends with money and things like that, rather than like just letting someone else deal with it.
Yeah. Head in the sand mentality is not going to help you. No, 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 no,
No,
no, no.
no.
Mm-mm.
Right. Okay. So we've got 10 minutes left. I think like let's move away from the heavy stuff right now, because we're going to be appearing on each other's podcasts quite a lot, and we can dip more into the heavy stuff. But I've got some fun questions for you,
All right, hit me.
which I have kindly told you ahead of time.
Thank God, because I was sitting
I know.
down like I was writing a thesis.
Right. Okay. So this is for everyone listening who has like just absorbed everything Katie said and thought, she is fucking wonderful. I want to get to know her a little bit more. So here's some like getting to know Katie questions. Right. Katie, what are 3 things that people would be surprised to learn about you?
Okay, I struggled with this. Either because I'm like, either because I'm a real open book, or I don't know, maybe I'm just not very surprising as a person. I'm not sure. Anyway, I came up with what I came up with.
Okay.
So one of them's a bit heavy, but anyway, whatever.
I love a heavy one. Go for it.
So in my mind, this isn't the heavy one, obviously, but I have like this fantasy where I am a violinist and where I am a figure skater. Like this is like, I just have this vision of me on a stage, wowing the crowd, violinist. And I also have, I'm like, I am also a figure skater. I'm actually taking ice skating lessons at the moment to bring this into reality.
Love that. That's going to be so exciting.
So exciting. And it was interesting, to say the least. But anyway.
Well, have you gone to it?
Yeah, I went last night.
How was it?
It was actually quite a weird vibe, to be honest. Like the instructors didn't even introduce themselves. It was just sort of like we were on the ice and they were like, do this. And I was like, oh, sorry, I actually was like, what's your name?
We are on the ice now. We do not have time to talk.
It was very like that.
Yeah.
And that was like me and like a couple of adults and then mostly 6-year-olds.
No.
I was sort of expecting that. I was like, this is probably going to be me and mostly children. I have an Irish passport, so I'm a dual Irish-Australian citizen.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I've had it for like 10 years, but thank you.
That's so exciting.
It is, and it's very handy. That's how I've been able to live in the UK on and off for like the best part of 10 years.
Right.
So my dad's Irish.
Right.
So that's where that
from?
comes in. She's New Zealand. She's from New Zealand.
Where's your dad from in Ireland?
Oh, sorry. He is from Roscommon, which
Where's that?
it's like the West Coast. It's like near Mayo.
Oh.
Yeah, unless people are Irish, they haven't really heard of it. But
wow.
yeah.
So you're not any percent Australian. You're 50% Kiwi, 50% Irish.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I was born in New Zealand.
I wonder where the green eyes are from, because one of the first things I noticed about you was your green eyes, because I've got green eyes too. And when you've got them, you notice them in other people. I wonder if it's the Irish thing, if it's Irish or...
Most Irish people have blue eyes. And all of my family have blue eyes. I think it might come from, I actually don't know. That's a good question. I need to figure this out. I never wondered about it.
You know, okay.
Yeah, but you're right, because my mum, my dad, my sister all have blue eyes. I think nearly everyone on my dad's side have blue eyes, and everyone on my mum's side has blue eyes. Right. Maybe this is where I find out that I'm adopted. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why mine. Yeah. And the heavier one is that when I was 17, I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is like a cancer of the lymph nodes. Yeah, which feels like a lifetime ago now.
That will really surprise people.
Yeah, that is quite surprising, I suppose. Yeah. So
I mean, I feel like we should. We've only got 7 minutes left, and I do want to ask more questions about that, but I also want to like ask you the other question.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. And do you know what? It's not even like when people hear about it, sometimes they're like, "Oh God," and I'm like, "No, it's fine." Like I don't feel heavy. I mean, it happened a long time ago as well. So I was 17 when I was diagnosed.
I think when you're that age, you are surprisingly resilient, aren't you?
Yeah, it's strange how. It was obviously a big thing to happen to me, and there were obviously rough moments throughout, but it didn't traumatize me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like I felt fine. And I think my prognosis is always really good.
Right.
So I never was like, oh, am I going to die? Like it wasn't like that. And I have met people who weren't as lucky. But yeah, so that happened when I was 17. So they are my 3 things that surprised them.
Okay, I'm glad that it didn't traumatize you. Probably traumatized your mom and dad, but
probably I would say so. Yeah, I think so.
I'm glad it didn't traumatize you.
They took my trauma.
Great, they absorbed that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the first one again? Because I had something to say about that.
I'm a violinist and a figure skater, but only in my mind.
Right. Okay. So I was going to ask you because, right. So you know how when you imagine doing something right in your head, like that you've never done before, I have this thing where I imagine I'd probably be really good at it straight away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I go and try, and I'm like, oh, actually, no, I'm not really bad.
Oh, lol.
Just like anyone else starting a new thing. But I have this like inflated sort of, I don't know what it is, this sense of, yeah, I could probably
That
do that.
confidence.
Yeah, like this
Yeah.
stupid confidence.
This
Is that?
unfounded and unwarranted confidence.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've got that with the violin and the
Yeah,
ice cream?
I just think that I would just pick it up and like be incredible, and like people be like, "Wow, this talent, this
Mm.
she is just amazing. She inspires me," and that's what I imagine will
Right,
happen.
okay. Do you know what? I think you should work on it and do it, and I'm behind you. And I'll buy you your set of ice skates. No, I want that. Don't know why I
Thank
said that.
you. I'll hold you to
Um,
that.
I will buy them with the money that you get from Irvin.
Oh yeah, okay, that sounds so fair.
But do you know what? Looking at you, you look like a figure skater. So if you'd told
Thank
me
you.
in my next question that you were actually a figure skater, then I would have just believed you.
You'd be
I'd be
like,
like,
yeah.
oh yeah, that makes sense. Right. Okay. So the next one is two truths and a lie. So you need to tell me two truths, one lie, and I need to guess which one is a lie.
Okay. So the first one is I did ballet for 10 years and actually almost moved to New York to go further with it. Second one is I spent an hour in a hotel room with Zac Efron.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one is I broke my arm when I was 4 going backwards on the monkey bars with my eyes closed.
Right. Okay. So I believe the first one, the way that you told that, you were like, and I almost moved to New, like, it was such confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, and you also do, as I said, like you could be a figure skater and a ballet dancer. Like you hold yourself with your shoulders back, your chin parallel with the floor, and your knees out, your feet out. No, you don't.
My knees.
Your bum tucked in.
Like a
I
duck
remember
or
that
something.
from the one ballet class. You tuck your bum in, you don't stick it out. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one was again. What was the last one again?
Breaking my arm going
Yeah.
backwards on monkey bars.
Yeah. That's possible. So the Zac Efron is a lie.
Okay. Now, do I tell you what ones are true?
Yeah.
Okay. The lie was I'm not a ballet dancer. I am the worst dancer in the world.
Right. Okay. So you have met Zac Efron.
Yeah, and I spent an
Why
hour
did you
in his
an hour?
hotel room.
Did you pay for it?
Don't pay for it. Like he's a prostitute. No. So, and it sounds like we were like doing sordid acts. We weren't. In my mind, perhaps no. I was working for a company that did vitamin drips, and which is very LA. Anyway, so I was living in London at the time, and it was actually funny. I wasn't even meant to be like in the clinic that day because I did marketing for them, and I was just sort of doing a shadowing day just to like get a feel for the clinic, how it all worked, and everything. And Zac Efron's team rang up the clinic and was like, he wants a vitamin drip. And so me and a nurse got to go to his hotel room and spend an hour with Zac Efron in his hotel room. So that was quite
And
cool.
was he nice?
He was very polite and very he was very pleasant. He answered the door shirtless.
No.
Yeah. But he's so short. So
Is he?
like I did not fancy. He's got a beautiful face, like we can't deny.
Mm.
He was also in his grey hair era. I don't know if you remember that.
He's had a lot done to his face
He had like
recently.
a jaw thing, didn't he, or something?
Yeah,
Like
I
an
actually
accident.
think it looks quite. I think it looks quite good. It looks kind of like that,
Swollen.
like Tom of Finland. You know those like drawings, the gay porn drawings.
No. So
That's
niche.
something to Google after this. Um,
Okay.
right. Okay. So that's cool.
Yeah, he was nice, but it was also a weird vibe. I felt like he was, I mean, this obviously was what it was. It felt like he was a celebrity and we were the non-celebrities. Like it felt like that. There was a bit of an atmosphere in the room. It was awkward. I'm not
Oh,
gonna
that's
lie.
horrible.
Yeah.
I remember like it was just like in the public knowledge that when Liz Hurley called people that weren't celebrities civilians, and
Like she's a soldier.
I love that. Like she like that's probably how people who are super famous and have always been famous think about normal people. They think about them as civilians. It's wild.
That's so true. How
Yeah.
weird. Like
Yeah.
peasants.
Right. So
Um,
I've done 3 for you. Have you got time?
oh my God, yes.
Okay, right. I was captured and held by the Greek mafia. I am a descendant of Robert Burns. Do you know who that is, by the
Yeah,
way?
yeah.
Cool. Um, my last acting job was a private performance for Kelly Clarkson.
Oh my God, those are so good.
Thanks.
Thanks. Um, oh my God. This is really hard. I think I didn't even know you did acting. So I'm gonna say that the Kelly Clarkson one is true. What was it? Greek Mafia, or what was the other one?
I'm a descendant of Robert Burns.
Um, I'm gonna go the Greek Mafia.
That's a lie.
Oh, damn it. I thought that would
Or
be quite
no,
cool.
sorry, did you say the Greek mafia is a lie or true?
Sorry, the Greek Mafia being the true one.
So you
Just to
don't
go
think I'm a
so
descendant
rogue.
of Robert Burns?
I think you could be, but I think it's almost too obvious because you're Scottish. What is
Okay,
it?
you're correct. I am not a descendant of Robert Burns, but I did actually check relatively recently. Not that I've got my surname is not Burns,
Yeah, I
and
know.
there's never been any evidence in my life, or like my parents have never talked about it. But I just was like, I'm going to just check. He was actually only alive only about like 200 years ago, so it's not hard to find out. But I'm
Right.
not.
So you've been held at gunpoint by the Greek Mafia.
No, okay, not gunpoint. So
Oh, sorry.
basically,
This is how rumors start.
yeah, it's, I was 17 on holiday in Malia, right? When growing up in Britain, that's where you go on holiday, right? Like Malia. And we were told on day one, do not hire quad bikes. And I was like, I'm gonna hire a quad bike. So I hired a quad bike, and the whole thing that these guys do is they steal your quad bike off you, right? And like then you go, oh no, I've lost my quad bike, and then they like hold you ransom for the cat for cash, right?
Oh my God.
That is literally what happened to me. um
It's so niche. I didn't think
but
Quadbacks would come into it.
I know, but I just cried and cried and cried. Eventually they got tired of me and just threw me out.
Oh my
So
God, that's
I
hilarious.
didn't pay any money. But do not hire quad bikes if you're 17 listening to this.
Lesson learned. Or if you do, just annoy your kidnappers so much that they literally can't stand the sight of you.
Yeah, they literally locked me in an office. They locked me in an office, and there was like these big, scary Greek men like shouting at me, and I was just like,
By yourself.
ah! What?
By yourself.
By myself? Yeah,
Oh my gosh, that's
because
terrifying.
I went to their office to like tell them I'd lost the quad bike. It had gone. It disappeared, and then I found out afterwards that that's what they do. They steal them off you, so that you have to pay them like 500 euros. But I just didn't have it.
Oh my God. So hang on, just so the story's straight.
Hmm.
The people that you lent the bike off were the ones that stole it off you and
Yeah, yeah,
demanded you to pay. Oh
yeah.
my gosh, they're just
Yeah,
scam
so it's a
artists.
scam that they do. Yeah, but
Pieces.
this would be like almost 17 years ago. So
I hired a quad bike in Greece.
you obviously hired it from one of the good companies.
Obviously. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh my God. Okay. And what was the other? So Kelly Clarkson.
Yes, so that was my last acting job. So I was an actor for a bit, and I did these. I worked for this company, and we'd do murder mysteries,
Oh my
like
God.
Scottish themed murder mysteries. And we would turn up at like stately homes, and we were playing all these different characters. Like we had a Robert the Bruce murder mystery,
Amazing.
and like the guy organizing it, he was like this old guy. He was like, okay, so we've been hired for some yank in our family. That's what he said, some yank in
Uh,
our family. Right? Didn't tell us that she was a celebrity, just said some yank, right? So we turn up, right? And the payment for this job is like, I'm not joking, £100. I'm getting paid £100 for this, right? But there's like 5 or 6 of us. And then we walk into the room, like I'm all in full character. I'm playing like some sort of, I don't know, like handmaiden to Mary Queen of Scots or something. And there's Kelly Clarkson at the end of the table with like her friends and family, her children, brother, whatever, mum, like they're just around a big table. There's like 20 of them.
that's so cool.
It's so, and I was like
Kelly
totally,
Clarkson.
at one point, like they got really drunk, right? And they were loving it, right? Because we were all like proper, like talking in Scottish and like shouting at each other, "You're the murderer!" And she grabbed my arm and she's like, "I think it was her." And I was like trying to stay
Trying
in
to stay in
character.
character.
Yeah, so that was my last acting job after that. I think literally the next day I started my qualification to become a PT. So
Stop. I saw Kelly Clarkson was one of the very first concerts I ever went to. I was like 13, 14, and she was amazing.
she
That
has
girl has
amazing.
pipes.
Yeah, and she's such an amazing singer and also such a lovely, fun, down to earth person. Like I didn't
Oh,
feel like a civilian.
oh, see, I felt like a civilian. Zach needs to take notes. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
So good.
well, that was fun. That was a fun end to the podcast. Thank you
So fun.
so much for coming
Thank you
on.
so much.
Thank you for your
Loved
time.
this.
We'll be definitely doing more of these, probably due to the influx of requests that I get from all my listeners of She Is the Moment. They're like, bring Katie back on. She's so great. So as we did on your podcast, we're going to drop a little tiny hint. So Katie is, as I said, going to be featured on this podcast a little bit more because we're collaborating, right? We've got
Yeah.
something. I mean, like you'll pretty much know exactly what it's going to be, but like what it will do, the details will be coming soon. But if you are a coach or a business owner and you are interested in what we do, right? So Katie helps people with, you tell us a little bit more about like sort of like the identity side, the confidence, the embodiment,
Mm-hmm.
the leader energy. And then a little bit of what I do, so kind of similar, but also a bit of personal brand, a bit of like being unique, a bit of the charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent that I'm bringing every day. So yeah, that is coming maybe in April, maybe in Glasgow.
Maybe in April, maybe in Glasgow. There might be a live element.
Yeah,
It's going to be great.
it's gonna be
It's
great.
going to be great.
Right. Thank you so much for listening. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.